Hey, it's devlog time! We've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's get to it. Hey everybody, my name is Gerald, and I'm currently working on a game called Crystal Void. So this is the first devlog for my game, and I just want to get everybody up to speed with what I've been doing, where the concepts came from, the weird beginnings, a lot of stuff that I've learned throughout the whole 180 hours that I've been working on this game. So full disclosure, I still have a full-time job, I have a wife and kids, so time is very scarce. I had to make time by waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning so I can work on my game. I've been doing that for past 2 or 3 months now, and it's been going great because I can actually have about 2 hours in the mornings that I can just sit and work on my game with a fresh, clear mind. I used to do it late at night, and come on, after a day of hard work, your brain is foggy as heck. So my game started out very slowly, mostly because I still needed to study and learn a lot of things. Whenever I came across a problem, I had to go and research and study some more. And I think that's a lot of what this whole journey is about, is trying to do something, figure out how to do it, and then implement it. And I'm learning that way. Although some of the courses was really necessary because my coding skills was batch scripting in Windows, and maybe I touched on Python at one stage, but that Python has left a long time ago. From a coding point of view, that was really fundamental to me. And I'm learning as I go. And whatever I need, I'll go research and just add on top of what I already have. So the 180 hours roughly turns out to 1 hour a day. Obviously, there's a lot of studying involved, there's a lot of head scratching, there's a lot of bug fixing, and I have recreated my game a few times. Yeah. So coding aside, I haven't done much in terms of artwork. I have the asset pack that I used to start off from, and you'll see I've made a few changes, and I might actually do a lot of changes myself again. The only big thing I've made is the actual player model, which also turns out the other NPC models, but I've got ideas to change that again. And this is just purely a placeholder. Whenever I get stuck in the game, either coding wise or with a game design element, I like to just take my attention away from that and just make something nice artwork wise, or add a new effect. That's why you see I went a bit crazy with post-processing. It nearly killed my GPU, but I think we've all been there, right? Am I right? But I think it's fun to jump between these things because you learn at the same time. You figure out what's working, what doesn't, and it just gives you a mental break from the problem. Many times I've found that the next morning I would actually find the problem and solve it, or I'll find another workaround. And it's just kind of get your brain thinking differently. So enough about me yapping along. Let me show you what I've done. So this is the humble beginnings. This is the asset pack that we added. I loaded up the demo scene and added another character that I got from a humble bundle asset sale at one stage. And this is currently looking like a completely different game to what I initially envisioned. So watch this space. This might just be the next thing. But isn't she pretty? I started with the big fountain in the middle of the map as the energy source. This will obviously later be changed into a crystal, but I started with the game mechanics that will dish out the energy to the players. So I'm not here to use any demo map, I actually want to create my own, so I started with my own terrain, created the crystal at the center of the map like I initially wanted. So this was the first time I tried to implement the towers. I got a free asset from the asset store just to look like a cannon tower, and the placement started fooling me, as you can see by the hippie shakes and some sleepless nights, yes, but it was all worth it in the end because I think this is one of the first things I created that'll eventually end up in the final game. So essentially what it does, as soon as you click on the place tower button, it'll spawn a prefab that is a ghost tower looking like a bit of a see-through tower, just so that you can get an idea of where the placement would be, and as soon as you left click again, it'll actually place the proper prefab. I just created a flat plane so I can have enough space to actually test these towers. I wanted to test with larger ranges and try and see if they're going to actually accurately be able to shoot at a distance and still hit the target. At least after all those sleepless nights and endless troubles with math and quaternions, it was a big learning curve, but I eventually got it right. As you can see, the cannon tower here is firing at the person, and as long as it's in its firing radius, it'll continue looking at you and fire away. And this cannon is a bit of a douchebag. Even after you've fallen over, it'll keep hitting you. What a douche. So at this point I realized that this would be a great multiplayer game. And this was a huge mistake on my part. I spent so much time trying to figure out how to create a multiplayer game. And yes, a lot was learned, but I learned that it's a bit too complex for what I currently want to do and the time frame I want to do it in. So I created a smaller map. I created everything with just prototype materials, kept it raw, and had a simple capsule as the player. And just to indicate the direction, I created another little cylinder on its front and decided to add a light so I can see a bit. But yeah, I went a bit overboard with the fog and the glow. It's a bit hectic. But as you can see, this little character started to look like something familiar. But this got me on the road to creating my robot characters, and that's where I started to get the vision and idea for the story. And yeah, so in essence, the networking side is not taking place yet, but it was necessary for me to continue with the story and figure out where I want to go. So after I created my own little robots, I added them into the game, and I decided it's time for them to have some kind of a weapon. And what else would a robot use than an electric shock? So I found this electric bolt effect in the asset store where I can define the start and end points of the bolt, so I can manipulate that in the script. But it did not always turn out the way I wanted. But this bolt gave me so many headaches, and it probably took me a week or two just to get this bolt right. And added with the network complexity, I had to do this over the network as well, so it took even longer. But here you can see me finally fixing the bug after quite a few days, and I was dancing around. At this stage, the enemies were ready to receive damage from this electric bolt, and this is the actual damage script that I will attach to all things that are able to receive damage. I was actually really proud of these animations because while I was modeling the characters, I created them based on the game mechanics itself. So the robot will be using these to steer himself, it'll be using it to mine and attack. You can think of it as kind of its own built-in Swiss Army knives. So yeah, I have the tower implemented. The tower started to do damage as well, which was great. If any of the players moved into its radius, it'll actually start firing and everybody gets a bit of damage. So by this time I decided to ditch the multiplayer idea and make this a single player game. Obviously a lot of my scripts had to change, but some of the core mechanics were able to move over. I'm actually glad that I did this because I have some great ideas for a single player campaign kind of a thing, and it'll just help with storytelling as well. So here I started creating a brand new map for single player, which will have some NPC players playing along as if it's kind of a fake multiplayer game. Again, this is all focused around a center crystal, and smaller nodes will be scattered all around, and then the home bases for each player will be separated in each corner of the map. This map turned out a bit too large. Might decrease it slightly for the final game, and by the time I wanted to test some of the smaller stuff, I realized that this is not a great map to test on, but I think this is closer to what I will have in the final game. Since the game initially had a point and click movement system, I decided to rather go for a third person kind of a view. I'm not sure if this is the right move, but it just felt right at this stage, and here you can see me testing it out, and the physics got the better of me. It's like, stop. Can you stop?
Well, I told you to stop.
So this is one of those situations where I got a bit frustrated or tiresome with one of these things. I think it was the animations, and I decided to start adding a little bit of particles under this robot, because he is essentially hovering. There are no wheels or feet, but I slapped on a little particle system that looks like it is something coming out of its bottom. Again, this is not a final one, and it was just something to play around with. Nothing is going to be permanent, but it was just a nice playing around with the particle system. So I eventually implemented the all-important crystal at the center of the map, and I decided to use this prefab from the top-down RPG asset pack, and it looks absolutely fantastic. Next, I created some home bases. The top-down RPG asset pack already had these cute little fountains. I had to tweak a few of the colors, and I used this temporarily for the home bases, although a fountain doesn't really seem like a home base, but I'll come up with something shortly. This was just quick and easy because I want to have creeps spawn out of these things, and I thought it would be way cool if they can actually jump out of the fountain as if they are spawned from a distant world. Since every player will currently have a different color, I also created a script that will manage the home base color, and it'll change the water fountain and the sides of the fountain to match the color for that player, so we can easily identify whose it is. Now here we got to a part that I really enjoyed, and that is creating the first creeps. Again, I took an asset pack from the asset store of a free asset with a little mushroom, and this might not be something that an alien robot would send from his distant planet, but I thought, hey, it's gonna work for now, and they actually look very cute. So they might not be the actual creeps that I will use at the end of the game, but I think I will definitely use these as little local planetary creatures that are running around, and if you bug them, they will knock you. So here I am creating the script that will spawn them out, and then a navmess agent will set them on course for a random home base of an enemy player. I eventually gave them each their own color as well, and they will change color based on the fountain that they will be spawning from. So I just tried to test them out here. Look at them go! Go, my little pretties, go! But yeah, this fog, man, I was in love with the fog. Now, seeing that we have different colored players and different colored home bases, it's time that the player gets to decide which color he wants to be. Now, at this stage, I'm only referencing color, but in future, I might actually just change this to different factions or races and have different models for each. So I don't just want to be stuck on colors. But this is where I implemented the actual selection screen for the players, and this is actually quite cool to see all of them in a row, and as soon as you select your player, the game manager will spawn the next scene, set your player as that color and your home base, and it'll create the AI players as the rest. This is the map that I'm currently using. It's my mini test map, and it's working great. It's just got enough space for everybody to run around in, but still close enough so I don't have to wait for things to happen. So at this stage, we are able to mine the smaller nodes, we are able to receive energy from the main crystal, and the AI players are starting to do the same. I created state machines for the AI players, and that was quite a learning curve, just figuring that all out, but now that I have it, it's actually quite simple. And you can see above their heads, I've got some text that just indicates their current state, makes it easier for debugging. So yeah, this is where I am currently with my game, and as soon as these AI players can do exactly what the player can, I will start implementing a few more things. And the next thing is for them to actually implement their creeps, which is currently not working. Still got a few things to iron out over there, but I think as soon as that is done, this map might be a bit too small. Having a bunch of robots and mushrooms running around in this small map, things can get chaotic. And that's it for this episode, folks. I would love to get some feedback on what you've seen, so drop it in the comments below, leave a like if you like this, and subscribe if you want to see more. Until next time, remember, if you can't, do it until you can. Cheers.